Hey everybody, today is May 23rd, 2023, and today we're going to talk about the price of Bitcoin and how the price of Bitcoin can be affected by the upcoming debt ceiling deadline next week, next Thursday, June 1st. And before we begin, please read the disclaimer, and you can pause this video as you read it. Okay, so the main narrative over the last month has been the debt ceiling crisis, right? Congress has not been able to reach a deal to raise the debt ceiling. And so that is basically causing a lot of uncertainty over in the markets, right? Now, the main narrative before the debt ceiling crisis was the interest rates, right? But I think the markets are basically pricing in no more rate hikes, or at least one more 25 basis point rate hikes. So that's sort of like sinking into the background, and now the debt ceiling crisis is in full front, right? So right now, what's important is what's going to happen in the stock market, because we talk about how Bitcoin tends to follow the stock market, right? Now that we have a lot of institutional investors that can affect the price of Bitcoin, it tends to follow the stock market, especially the Nasdaq, right? But we'll look at the S&P because this is sort of like the market everyone looks at, right? Now I have another video talking about the stock market that I put out today, and you can watch this video as well. I basically, just to summarize, I talked about how the debt ceiling crisis, negotiations that are happening in Congress as we speak, they're basically not going very well. And we already talked about how this is very predictable, right? This always happens. They always, excuse me, they always wait until the last minute, right? Because both sides, they have agendas. They both have things that they want to get passed, and they're going to hold this debt ceiling crisis as hostage to get what they want. So again, political theater, political circus. Not surprisingly, yesterday Congress was not able to reach a deal with the White House, right? They're talking about how this is yesterday, so 9 days. Basically, Janet Yellen said on June 1st, if we're not able to raise the debt ceiling by June 1st, which is next Thursday, we could possibly default on our loans, right? And that will like severely impact the economy, right? Especially the stock market. We're probably gonna see the stock market tank, right? But they're probably going to come to a deal at the last minute, right? Like they always do. But in the meanwhile, that probably caused some turmoil in the markets. In my stock video, I talked about how I can see pullback down to these moving averages to fill these gaps. But as long as we make a higher low than what we had during the regional bank crisis in March, and we continue to make higher lows, right, since the October low, right, we might have an ascending triangle pattern here, which means that if the debt ceiling crisis is resolved, we might see a nice run up, right, bullish breakout from this range that we're in, right? Basically, been ranging in the S&P 500 for about a year between 4,200 and 3,800, right? We want to break out of this range finally, right, and try to retest the next high around 4,600 and then the all-time high around 4,800, right? But still, we still have to deal with the debt crisis first, right? Before we can look that far ahead. But basically, I'm just bringing up the stock market because that's going to affect the price of Bitcoin, right? If a debt ceiling negotiation isn't resolved, and they don't agree to raise the debt ceiling by next Thursday, we can see the market tank, which will probably tank Bitcoin with it. I've been talking about where I think Bitcoin can fall down to over the last couple of videos. I still think that Bitcoin can come down to 25,000, right? I talked about how in previous videos, like I have this long thread that I have, right, where I said, oh well, Bitcoin, I think it can still come down to 26, potentially retesting support at 26,000, right? 200 week moving average. However, I can see Bitcoin potentially falling down to 25,000, and then my next update a week after that, we ended up seeing the Bitcoin actually touch the 200 week moving average, actually go below a little bit, right, to 25,000 handle. However, I can still see Bitcoin come down and retest 25,000 or even wick below temporarily, right, if we aren't able to raise the debt ceiling and if the stock market tanks, right, which I actually thought it was a nice place to potentially range of support, because 25,000 is basically at this level, right, and that is where we have these two local highs, right, over here and over here. And oftentimes we see the market likes to come down and retest previous levels of resistance. And if we're able to hold this level, we could potentially turn it into a strong support before moving up higher, right? I also talked about how 30,000, which is what we had resistance recently here back in April, right? 30,000 is also an important level of resistance, because that was support during our 2021 and 2020 bull market right here. 1, 2, 3 times we tried to hold that support. The third time we failed and broke, and we had this catastrophic plunge to the bear market, right? And now we're coming back up and retesting 30,000 for the first time since basically May of last year, basically a year ago. We've been under 30,000. So I said in a previous video, if we weren't able to have like a parabolic run echo rally like we had in April 2019, then we could probably see this 30,000 level turn into strong resistance and see something more like 2016, where we had a much more stable rise, right? Instead of like a sprint and a pullback and another sprint, right? So I think that we're going to see something more similar like that, right? Again, I said on the chart here, we went down and ended up touching the 200 week, which was actually 26,000, right? So perfectly aligned with what I believe would have happened. But I think that if we do have failure to reach an agreement next week, or we wait until the last minute, I think the stock market could be negatively impacted by this, which could bring Bitcoin at least temporarily down to 25,000, right? And to me, that's where I have some buy orders. So this is why I put the tweet out last Thursday, right? However, I can still see Bitcoin retest 25,000 support, right? Now, of course, this is not financial advice. This is just what I'm doing. I'm not saying that you have to follow what I'm doing. Definitely do your own research, your own due diligence, and make your own financial decisions. But that is just what I see that could potentially happen, right? Like I said, look at these moving averages, right? If you see how in April we tried to hold the 50-day moving average, which is our short-term moving average, and we couldn't hold it anymore. We broke down, and now we're basically trying to hold the 100-day moving average, which is our midterm moving average, this gold line, right? This is why I like moving averages, right? It tends to work out pretty well. We hold support here, and then we fail the third time, and we break down. Now 1, 2, is this the third time? If we fail to hold, are we going to come down? If you look at this chart, you might think, oh, well, now it's going to come down all the way down to 22,000. And it could very well do that, but I still think that support at 25,000, which is our range high here, resistance levels here, can act as potentially strong support if we do come down and retest 25,000. So that's basically what I'm looking for. So the fear and greed index is neutral now, but we still have plenty of room to the downside, right, before we get oversold. So yeah, if Congress isn't able to come up with a solution to agreement and to raise the debt ceiling, then yeah, we can see this thing come down, taking the price of Bitcoin, right? But overall, the on-chain metric looks pretty good, right? Hash rate is basically near all-time highs. There's more miners coming in to contribute to the Bitcoin network, which is great. Let's look at some like indicators, right? This indicator is one of my favorite because it's really simple to read this chart and tell you, which tells you when Bitcoin is generally a good time and area to buy is usually below the green line when we're in the shaded area, right? We're still in the shaded area, which looks more and more like the bear market, beginning bull market / beginning bull market of 2015 2016 cycle, right over here. So I do think that if history repeats itself, this could actually be a good time to buy. And if we do have a pullback due to the debt ceiling crisis, this could be another additional opportunity to buy, right? Pi cycle top indicator generally does a good job calling the top, right? When we have a crossover here, and but it also gives you a good idea of when the bull market has started. And usually the bull market starts when the price of Bitcoin crosses above this orange line and stays above, right? We might come down and retest the orange line once in a while, but as long as we hold the orange line, that generally is a strong indicator that the bull market is on, right? So we come up, and we came up a little too quickly in the last bull cycle, so we came down, and in some instances stayed below the orange line, but eventually we came back up and we were able to hold that support, and that was a good indicator that the bull market was on, right? So right now, we're pretty much getting close to this orange line area, which is where we want to stay above. But if we have a quick wick down, if there is a stock market crash next week, we could potentially have a good buying opportunity, right? That we could wick down to 25,000 and hold support at this level. But that's what we want to see, is hold support at above the orange line, right? But yeah, overall things in the long run are looking good, but in the short run we might see some volatility in the market, right? And we're also starting to price that in with the VIX, right, being high today. But we shall see, right? That is the short-term narrative that's going to dominate the headlines for the next week, right? Is Congress going to be able to come to a agreement, to a solution, and to raise the debt ceiling? And if not, we can see some turmoil in the market. And if they do so, then we can see the stock market and subsequently Bitcoin rip up higher and retest 30,000, right? But of course, nobody knows what's going to happen until Congress announces that they have a deal in place, and that could be today, but it could also be next week until the last hour. I think it's going to be until the last hour, the 11th hour, right? We have until June. Yeah, Janet Yellen again said that if the U.S. is not able to raise the debt ceiling by June 1st, we could possibly have a default, which should be catastrophic, right? Especially to the market. So we will see if that's going to happen, if we're going to come to a deal, or whether the stock market is going to perhaps plunge if they're not able to come to a deal, and potentially taking Bitcoin with it, right? And whether this moving average is going to hold. So I will come to you on Thursday with a chart in my Twitter page, EddieLux_. Please come and follow me on Twitter to get updates on Thursday, to see if they come up with a deal by then. If not, I'll come back next Tuesday and we will talk about whether they have another deal over the weekend and how that's going to affect the markets going forward. Of course, the next 7 days, right, the next week is going to be pivotal. They really have to get a deal done by June 1st. Otherwise, it could be catastrophic. So, but I will keep you guys updated, and we will go through this together and see how this will affect the price of Bitcoin going forward. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it useful, helpful, informative, please like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe for updates. Appreciate all your support. Thank you again, and have a great day.